Lisa Jayne Irvine. Welcome to Hub Creative Talks interview. Tell our audience a bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm an artist, podcaster, and educator here in Mississauga. I am also the 2000 emerging artist and now the established artist. And I've been working and creating here in the city for my whole career. I even did my undergraduate studies at UTM in the Art and Art History program.
You're a high school visual arts teacher. How do you balance your work life and professional art practice?
That's a great question. I think it's a lot of scheduling. I know from Monday to Friday I have to be in a classroom. That's easy. After that, I try to work in at least one full weekend day for the studio so I don't go crazy. And I also try to work the podcast in and around that. Recently, I talked to an artist and she described all the things she does as a dance. I think that's a perfect metaphor because you're always moving and dancing. Nothing's perfectly balanced. Some days I'm podcasting, some days I'm creating. It just depends.
How did you start your podcast titled Art Conversations?
It started because my partner was thinking about starting a podcast with one of his friends. So I was sort of sitting on the sidelines listening to them banter back and forth about podcasting. And then it sort of was like a little light bulb moment. Hey, I could do that. That would be easy. I talk every day at work. I can talk to artists. So I decided I would give it a try.
What got you interested in creating your podcast series?
I really missed talking to artists during the pandemic, being isolated and away from people. Even though we were trying things on Zoom, it was not the same as the in-person. And I missed like art galleries, art shows, anything where artists got to socialize. So I sort of reached out to a bunch of friends and said, hey, I have this idea. I want to start a podcast. And they all said yes. So right after that, I had to follow through. And luckily, my first podcast was a friend of mine and her and I just had fun with it. So it was good.
Do you have a favorite moment from creating this series?
Ooh, this is a hard question. I don't want to offend any of my guests. They've all been great. I think one of my favorite moments was actually interviewing my mentor, Reinhard Reichenstein. I was really nervous. I don't know why, because I've known him for so long and I'm so comfortable talking to him. But once I started, we just had the greatest banter and we talked, I'd say, for like almost an hour. I had to try to edit it back down because him and I talked so long. He said he's willing to do a part 2. But all my guests have been great. We've had a lot of fun.
Let's talk about your work. You work in a variety of mediums, including painting and sculpture. Why do you like to experiment with different mediums?
I think my love of sculpture came from my university days. I discovered sculpture. I hadn't ever been exposed to it prior. I don't even remember doing sculpture in high school, but when I got to university, it was one of our courses, and I just loved creating with my hands and seeing things come together 3D. So that really sparked me on as an artist to continue. And I've always loved painting. I love moving paint across surfaces. I love mixing colors. So the experimentation, I'd say, comes a little bit from being a teacher and having to teach so many things, but also just that love of play and letting the idea sort of dictate what the medium's going to be.
Can you tell us about your recent series, The COVID Flower, you created during the pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. Pre-pandemic, right up until like probably 2 weeks before the pandemic, I had been working on an abstract series for about 5 years and was getting a little bit in my head about it, and suddenly the world stopped. And I think that just sort of gave me permission to just go into the studio and do whatever, because there was nobody to show it to, be accountable to, worry about. And I thought, I just want to paint. I want to paint something and I want it to be positive and happy, because everything felt so gloomy at the beginning, especially like we're hearing like people were stranded places, things were shutting down. My own workplace, we didn't know when we were returning to work. So I just went in and I painted a giant sunflower to start, and it got a great reception because I posted it on social media. And then I was like, well, I'm going to paint another flower because I had this giant canvas, and I'm like, I painted that. And then I painted another one, and it just sort of evolved into a series. I am a gardener, so it just seemed natural to paint flowers. I'm always photographing and documenting my garden. So evolved into this series that I'm actually loving and having fun with. So, and I have a lot of canvas waiting for summer, so I can't wait.
You recently won a MARTY Award in the Established Visual Arts category. What was this like for you, and what did it mean to you?
Oh, it was overwhelming in the moment. I will be honest. It was a huge honor. I was really grateful for it. It feels like all the hard work that I've always put in was being acknowledged and being seen by others, not just what I do in the studio. So that was a huge honor for me, and I got to celebrate with my family, so that was cool. Always a good moment. And it's been really exciting. I've enjoyed having the MARTY in my home. People have asked, where do you have it? I'm like trying to figure out where it wants to live, so it's moving around the house. But definitely it's an honor to be acknowledged for the hard work that I've put in over the last little while.
Do you have any tips for starting out artists that are afraid to play and experiment with sculpture and painting?
Oh, for sure. Just go and do. You have to be in the studio. Inspiration, I think we have this idea that artists get these big sparks of inspiration, but really it's the doing. And if you have a regular routine for doing, I think you're going to come out more productive. You're going to get better ideas. Even if it's just you go down and organize your little space, and also you don't have to have a huge creative space. You just need a space where you can create. I think again, movies and books and the way we're taught about artists, you think of these grand studios, but nobody needs that big of a space to get started. You just have to do it.
Currently, do you have a favorite artist?
Oh, I always have favorite artists and it changes daily. I love, historically there's quite a few artists I love. Van Gogh is a favorite, George O'Keeffe. I've definitely come to admire a lot of the artists that I'm interviewing, and Cole Swanson is doing some really interesting work. My mentor, Reinhard Reichenstein, I really admire the work that he does. So I think it's just, you've got to look to artists for that inspiration, and not necessarily, you don't want to copy what they're doing, but there's always those little truths in what they're doing that can inspire you, even if your work's unrelated. So.
What does the future look like for you? Any upcoming projects you're looking forward to?
There's lots of projects. They're never ending. I've had people inquire over the last year and a bit about me teaching online. So I'm starting to put together some online courses based on things that I do in the studio. So I've been slowly evolving and preparing that. And I'm continuing the COVID Flower series. I ordered a large batch of canvases from a place in Toronto. They're just sitting there like taunting me right now because I'm so busy at work. So those are the two big projects, and whatever else comes my way.
Where can people find you?
The best place to check is my Instagram account, because I'm always keeping that up to date. So it's Lisa Jayne, and it's Jayne Irvine.com, .com on Instagram. It's also my website at www.lisajayneirvine.com. So those two places I try to keep my work fairly up to date. Website needs a little work, but I'll get there. That's what summer's for.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.